us, yeah. See them with their big belly. Then go they use religion to cause plenty confusion. Sometimes the tribalism.
Okay, we're back. It's Sunrise, by the way.
You wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah. Before we go on, having that conversation earlier about whether or not what local governments do. A former commissioner of transport in Lagos sent us this one. It says, local governments in Lagos did not only construct roads, they also do hospitals, markets, drainage, among others. Yearly, like some others, my local government rehabilitates and constructs not less than 5 streets for as long as I can remember. Okay, so please help us also understand why a 20 or 30-minute journey still takes 3 hours or more along the Lekki corridor.
In many corridors in Lagos.
Well, let's start from there.
Yeah, okay. Now, let's get the program on the show in earnest. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday in New York said, and I quote, "The world will ignore Nigeria at its own peril." And to prospective investors, he said, I quote, "Nigeria is an opportunity that is impossible to replicate or find elsewhere in any part of the world." He also said, "Sincerely, we don't have any reason to be poor. We're just poor in some leadership areas." Some would say in all leadership areas. That a poor leadership has been our problem is not a hidden fact. And like we were saying at the beginning of the program, Nigerians love Nigeria. They just don't trust government. That's a different thing entirely.
I mean, like?
They don't like and they don't trust government.
And if we decrypt government, it includes appointed people, employed people, and elected people. And they are less than 1% in Nigeria. Anyway, you were saying something.
Yes. So this week, young people across the country gathered to mourn the death of 27-year-old star Mohbad, who died in mysterious circumstances after a label feud. This happened while there were reports of kidnapping of some women in Zamfara. Nigerians cannot enjoy uninterrupted power supply. The national grid collapsed once more on Tuesday when power generation crashed from a peak of 3,594 megawatts at midnight to an alarmingly low 42.7 by midday. This marks the 3rd time that the grid would collapse within a month. Nigeria's soaring economy, hey God, it looks like, excuse my French, it looks like our problems are just myriad. Our inflation rate has gone to 25.8. Minimum wage is still 30,000 naira. The naira was floated. And we were told that it would improve our situation, but now the naira is exchanging for 1,000 pieces to $1.
You were asking all the questions already.
I'm just listing our problems. Okay. We're talking about the state of the nation. This is the state our nation is in. How are investors going to come in? How are people going to start up businesses when they have to bring in equipment by changing buying $1 for 1,000 naira?
Good question.
Okay, these are questions we're going to ask our guests this morning. We have a panel of 2 legal practitioners and 1 social commentator. Godi Uwazurike is a legal practitioner. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, viewers.
Thank you for joining us. And so is Tony Dania. Good morning.
Good morning, viewers.
And social commentator Biodun Showumi is also with us this morning.
Good morning, viewers.
Thank you. Let me start with the social commentator. Among the things that the president said to the diasporians was that they should come home. Nigeria is now like a beautiful bride. All of you come home and take advantage of the situation in the country now. Would you be saying that to any Jakbarians?
Honestly speaking,
I've never believed in the theory of people jackpying out of the country for obvious reasons. They are different from people who are going abroad to seek further knowledge or to gain new skills, understand new technologies, that they are totally different. The whole idea of Japa is people who feel frustrated, by the economic situation or perceived lack of opportunities, to actualize their dreams. So they are actually the people living the country. Many of them quite young people who believes that luxury life exists elsewhere and they need to be part of that life. They don't want to live in a country where there is no regular light and all that, forgetting the fact that other countries started from somewhere and they used to be where we are. We don't need to be where we are currently, but we are there. But at the end of the day, the whole theory of Japa is not really progressive for the country because many of them will still eventually come down. I have lived there. I know what it is for 20 years. So I understand how those society functions and the frustration of those societies, which they will now encounter. And many of them are beginning to think about it. So the idea of people living for those reasons, to me, it's out of it. But people need to live. You cannot stop labor from moving. As long as capital moves, labor would move. No doubt about that.
Two things that you need to speak with on that very quickly. Number one, as far back as the 80s, you would definitely remember the Andrew saga.
Yes.
It is not new.
Yes.
People leave the country.
Yes.
All the time. Whether or not they will come back, I don't know about that. And we have lived on hope almost all of our lives. In 1986, I think, when the debut of the Under-17 World Cup happened, Nigeria won that cup. Was it 1986?
It's
1987.
It's
1987.
Was it 87?
Yeah,
okay.
87.
So it was that year that Ebenezer Obey, after that victory, he sang a song and said, "This Nigeria is still going to be better. Nigeria is still going to be sweet." That was 1987, almost 40 years now. Lagbaja sang a song in the 90s into the 2000s, Nigeria must sweet again. And one of the songs we've played this morning, Charlie Boy,
go good.
one day, our Nigeria go good. Oh. So, but things are still the way they are. My colleague began by speaking about the fact that Nigerians love Nigeria, but have very, very cautious optimism or feelings about government. So, where's the encouragement?
Okay, I would also add another song to it. I love my country. I no go like.
Well, there are those who will call that a satire.
I go live and die.
There are those who will call that a satire.
Correct.
Written by Wole Soyinka.
Yes, correct. But the song is about tolerance and endurance and people being able to find relevance within their own country rather than hoping that there's a life outside, some other people from somewhere will solve the problem for us in our home country or leave. And I think that's exactly the message Tinubu is trying to communicate to Nigerians in diaspora, to say, look, whatever many people think about this country, it's a land of opportunities. It's full of very highly skilled people. Not only that, we have the human resources, we have the market. It's the biggest black country in the world, in terms of population. And not only that, it has huge opportunities for investment, which at this critical point in our history, we need the investment, we need the stream of income in terms of foreign exchange from the diaspora into our country. And I think that's the message Tinubu is trying to communicate to people in diaspora.
Tony, do you not think that this message of the president is premature? Because the very reason for which these Jackmarians, Jackmad, still exist. There is still no power, there's still no good road, the law still doesn't work as it should. people are circumventing the law, depending on who you are and who you know, those things still exist. Yes. It's not as if much has improved since they left the country.
Well, every president will canvass for investment, so it's natural. And every president will want to sell the country positively. So that is what the president is doing. But however, I admit that we have marriage of problems, and we've been having it. But it has dawned on me that we have also been making progress pari passu at the same time with this problem. For instance, you cannot say things are the same as it were in the 80s. We were not having GSM in the 80s. We have GSM now. Even when Cotonou had GSM, we were not having GSM. Nearly we had GSM. Are you aware that we are about the 5th consumer of GSM wares in the world? So then we have, gone up in the production of rice too. I'm a lawyer. When some clients come to complain about things they want to go and do abroad, I encourage them, why can't we do it here? Nigeria is one of the highest exporter of cashew seedlings. The only thing we do with cashew seedlings here is fry it and eat. So what are the other people doing it with it? And they pay so much. So why can't we establish it here? So I think we need to address certain basic social and economic infrastructures here. One, once we improve on electricity generation, what was done to communication, if it is done to electricity, I'm telling you, not less than 30% of all, not one problem, all the problem, unemployment, security, and all that. If we improve on assessment to facilities, the medium and small-scale businesses, that's what is keeping India. If you go there, small businesses all over the places.
But you haven't answered her question. You said we are, you referenced the fact that in the things are different in the 80s as opposed to now.
Yes.
Of course. But how come it's like the same cycle of things that happened in the 80s that are happening now? Remember, in these 80s we are talking about, the military took over because of one thing. Economy was getting worse. The Shagari government came up with the austerity measures. And the government of the day, the Buhari government at the time, overthrew the government and said, look, they wanted to do things better. Corruption was a problem. And on and on and on like that. So while it is sensible to say, indeed, we have improved, we have developed one way or the other, but it would seem like we take a step forward and drag some problems along with us.
Yes, that is why I said I admit that we have problems. I've said that. And then if you want to start specifying the problems, then we can go into certain details. For example, the people, you said it, the people don't trust the government. In those days, there was some level of trust. And when the military came in, the military did perform worse. There is a military leader that is still alive that legitimized corruption in this country. So we are aware of all that. I am saying that while we are trying to solve our problems, we should admit that we've made some progress. And then we should also put in place measures that will enhance more progress. That's what we are saying. So while you identify the problem, you suggest what you think are solutions to the problems. You know, we give it to the late Chiradua when he admitted openly that, look, I came in through process that is not too good. I will try and streamline it. And he set up a panel to work on it. So while I don't want to go into the judgment of the presidential election, the president is advised to also do what Yaradua was trying to do. We know that the process is shrouded in a lot of complex and improper, irregular activities. So the problem we have are there. Let's talk more of the solutions to the problem. Now, when you improve electricity, like I was saying, what you would have saved will be in the pocket of private person, not in government hands. You make me not to buy fuel all the time. You make me not to spend on my inverter. You make me not to service my generator. You create more room for the ordinary barber operating the small salon. So it will enhance a lot of things. You know. Then when you now fix the road, we are beginning to, see private company fixing road on Thames. I don't know how true it is. I am aware Dangote is fixing the road Apapa down to, road and Oshodi Road on tax waiver. So the government should look at other options. I am suggesting to the government, government of states, that look, you can fix 10 feeder roads. How you do it? Already, almost every street in Lagos State, I don't know if they are taking census of the street we have, but almost every street has private security arrangement, which makes it easy to get intelligence. Almost every street are working on tying the street now. So what government can do is, if you tie your street, we knock off ground rent, we knock off this for you, encourage them, or we add so much for you to tie your street, provided you meet engineers' dictates and proposal on the street approve proposal on the street you want to tie. Then the youth are encouraged to embrace courtesan and Yahoo. How do you stop that? When they now see that wealth are celebrated, nobody asks how you become wealthy. Corruption is celebrated. The big people in the government who we know are corrupt are still there. So that will not help the youth. So the judicial system must be overhauled. Enforcement of laws must be handled properly. There's corruption in almost every segment of our society. The police, the fire service, it is the one you see that you know, but there are a lot of corruption activities everywhere. The government must lead with example. Finally, prudency. How many cars does a government official need, for example? Go to the current president of the Senate. How many cars does it have? How many does he have? How many staff and aides are working with him? How many does he really need? If we run a government business as if we are running private business, it will be good for us. I cannot employ 10 aides. I cannot use 10 cars. So go there and work like you are, you are working for yourself. I mean, you're running your own company. Yeah. But despite the problems we have, I have hope. Just like you have been saying, obey, talk about it.
We've been talking about that hope, as I said, forever. But okay, Chief, respond to this as your own first. I mean, it's around the same thing. Usman Santuraki from Adamawa State sent this one in. Says, the Japa issue will continue to make Nigerians leave the shores of the country because all the successive administrations failed the country woefully. At this time, electricity supply is epileptic, is still epileptic. Production of almost everything is low. Corruption is at every door, be it at the government and private levels. Leading me to that question that I wanted to put to him. When he said there's corruption everywhere. I find that very interesting because everywhere is literally everywhere, including in homes.
Yes. Well, I think our friend Usman is very correct in identifying some things. But the greatest problem or the worst problem we have today is called poverty of leadership. For the common man, his greatest problem is poverty of thought. Because that failure of leadership is what leads people to look for the shortest means of getting what they want. People are selling their homes. People are resigning their jobs to go out there to Japa. Some walk through the desert because the situation is hopeless and helpless. Some stow away in ships inside container. They live there for weeks. Half of them will die. But they said, one way or the other, I must go out. Moving out is a natural thing. When I was growing up, send-off was done for those traveling. And then when they're coming back, another reception is held. It was a big issue. You finish reading, you come back. You have a place. But today, you finish reading, you don't come back. Many people have left Nigeria and are doing one-way traffic. They're not coming back because they see no hope here. Now, if you look at those who were very young in 2014, 2015, a man called Buhari was coming in. Many people thought he was a messiah. APC came in, promises. One of them was reduction of cost of governance. Hope for the youth. Tomorrow is your own, and so on. We even have a youth voting law and so on. 8 years had passed. What happened? Those who were earning 18,000 when Jonathan was there, We're earning that in some states up till today. So that sense of helplessness, that sense of hopelessness is rising higher. Today, what is the cost of living? Skyrocketing. And you're telling a young person, don't worry, tomorrow will be better.
On that, if you don't mind me butting in, Chief, very quickly, I find it curious. It costs an average of 20 million naira to relocate outside Nigeria, and that's perhaps being cheap. Is it the person that earns 18,000 naira or even 30,000 naira minimum wage now that is relocating? If anyone could come up with 20 million naira, put it all together, is it, as Mr. Daniel said the other time, is it too difficult to encourage that person, or for that person to be encouraged to find some way of investing that same resource?
Let me even go further. Why would somebody sell his house in order to travel and go and sleep on the streets? It is what you're looking forward to, that sense of helplessness, sense of hopelessness. In other words, you see no future in this country. Now, let me continue from where I stopped about the cost of governance. We have how many ministers today? 47, 48. For each of them, you have about 10 personal staff who work with him. All of them paid by government. You have about 10 cars. And those personal staff also have their own assistants paid by government. So the cost of governance has gone up. The National Assembly is a natural disaster in terms of expenditure. So many people look forward to this government doing those things we have been campaigning, even here, called restructuring. Those who are doing campaigning for restructuring have left in frustration because this government, like the previous ones, do not care about the youth, about the future. What do they do with their own children? Even at 1,000 naira to $1, they send them abroad. By the time they finish, they arrange their youth service. Before we know it, they have become the novel rich. In other words, this ordinary man who does not have access to 20 million looks for ways to even up.
Okay. Well, Mr. Shomi, I'm sure you have a response or two to that. But there are some, going by what Mr. Daniel said about us looking for solutions, is it too early to criticize the federal government? One. Two, how about the states? It seems like most of the time when we're having these conversations, we seem to excuse the states.
Yes, well, in the first instance, I still think it's too early to appraise the Tinubu's administration. This regime is under 120 days in office. No doubt about that. It has come...
That being said, there were 100 days last week, and they were appraising themselves. So what stops us from also appraising them?
Criticizing them.
Well, within
the first 100 days off.
Yes, within the context of the impact of the policy initiatives taken by this administration, there is no way how you can accurately assess this administration until when we see the impact on the people. Don't forget, policies take time.
We have seen the impact, Mr. Shomi. People are poorer, people cannot eat, people cannot buy fuel, cars are off, many cars are off the roads.
Look, these are the offshoots of policies taken aimed at correcting the defects within the economy. We should not forget where we were before Tinubu came in. 96% of the resources of this country was being used to service, debts.
Not pay.
Not to pay debts, to service them. Nigeria was grinding to a halt. We're about to be bankrupt. And then it's like cancer. When you have a cancerous problem, it requires operation. You have to carry out surgical operation, and it takes time before it can heal up. And what the government has tried to do now is to restructure the economy by deregulating the commanding heights of the economy. Basically, looking at the downstream sector of the economy, liberalizing the price of fuel with a view to attract investment. We have gone down to a point that we are only exporting, 800,000 barrels of oil a day, by late last year. early this year, we're still exporting 1 million barrels. By July, we're exporting, about 1.2 million barrels a day, and now it's up to 1.6 million barrels a day. So obviously, there will be more revenue coming into the country. What we need to do is what the government is doing. One, we need to take forex, what do they call it? PMS off the forex table. If you don't take PMS off the forex table, you will not have the foreign exchange to keep in your reserve with a view to arrest the declining value of Naira. And once we manage to fix the refinery, which that is what I'm saying is a bit too early, we need to see what the government is doing within a year, whether they can get 1 or 2 refineries working. If they're unable to get it working, then of course, we should come heavily hard on the government. Once you take the PMS off the forex table, you see that the Naira will start stabilizing. Contrary to what some people think, that immediately you fix the refinery, the price of PMS will crash. I don't. It will not necessarily work that way. It will reduce, but not crash. The simple reason is because the PMS price, the petrol price, depends on the value of a barrel of crude oil. That is what determines the derivatives, the cost of the derivatives. And if you take example of UK, for instance, where you have all refineries working, UK is exporting petrol, but at the end of the day, the price of a liter of fuel in UK is $1.87. And in Nigeria, it's still 80 cents. So it does not work the way people are looking at it. It will take some time. Once we stabilize the value of Naira, you cannot stabilize it because the Naira is tied to the dollar. Except we have the foreign exchange, in our reserves. Currently, we only have about $5 or $6 billion in our foreign exchange, contrary to what we were told, $33 billion before Buhari left. So we are in a very terrible situation economically, and that is what this administration has inherited. I'm glad Tinubu himself said nobody should pity him. Okay. He has for the job, he has it. Okay. But we need time, to evaluate the impact of his policies on the people, our economy, and see whether it will uplift the living standards of our people.
Yes,
Mr. Daniel.
Yes, while I agree with you, I commend the president is doing a lot of work, but I expected, I've said it here, when subsidy was removed, Alero, remember, that he ought to have put in place cushioning measures first. Put in place populist policies before you start bringing in far-reaching policy. Because if you do not put in place cushioning measures, you will get the backlash that you are getting now. What the effort you are putting in will be dwarfed by criticism. Because people don't reason the way we are reasoning, you don't expect everybody to reason like us. What they want to see is that they are able to eat, they can pay transport, they can move. That's what they want to see. So if they cannot do that, you'll be receiving criticism. Whereas an in-depth analysis will indicate that Tinubu has good intention for the country. You understand? I am a maritime consultant, and I know that subsidy is a big fraud. I have prosecuted subsidy fraud in Nigeria, so I know it's a big fraud. So I was happy. But what I'm saying is that before you do such a thing, put in place certain things that people can fall back onto. That is one. Then two, show example of prudency. We have a lot of ministry, we have a lot of parastatals that are not supposed to exist. For example, the National Identity Card is there. National Population Commission is there. Why are they on retirement? They get retirement benefit when they leave the service. Why? Why can't we have a unit in a ministry to handle an action? Because of trust, because of corruption. Everybody want to bring up. We have paramilitary agency being formed now. Before you know what, you put them, commission them, give them one name, they will be paid. This is wasting of funds. We should see an exemplary prudency on the part of the government.
So you are suggesting that government should merge some ministries?
Shrink
government.
I just gave you two examples. Yeah. National Population Commission, NIDC. Why are they separate? Okay. Why are they separate? It's not almost the same work. Identity card. Why can't National Population do ID card? There are a lot like that we can talk about. Okay. Now we've gotten a blue economy. Now we have MP and the others that are still under the Ministry of Transport. Why can't we have departments?
Okay. Chief,
Yes.
you want to make a comment on that before? Because I heard you chuckling.
I have to.
Yes.
Because you have a Minister of State for Police Affairs. What does she do? You have Police Service Commission.
We have
You have
Police Service
Office
Commission.
Inspector General of Police.
We have-
They have Minister for Police and Minister of State. So there is a complete wastage going on. If you look at this blue economy, I was asking somebody, the things that get from the sea, does that include fishery? Fishery is under Ministry of Agriculture. And some people are even campaigning for Ministry of Pastoral Affairs. You know, when I said
To deal with the cows.
Yes. When I said poverty of leadership, I mean every word of it. This is the way to go. This is the preparation you make. Explain to the people, communicate to the people what to expect. You will not do that. You will rather impose something. That is where removal of subsidy crashed the economy. Foreign exchange mishandling crashed the economy. Today, you expect somebody to bring in money into the country to invest. How does it take it out? ShopRite had to sell off because they were importing goods, $100 million. By the time they finish selling, it will amount to $60 million. They saw themselves losing. So they had to sell their shares and left. The same way an investor coming in must first inquire into our legal system.
So
What is the slang today? Go to court.
You don't see
Yes.
you don't
Yes.
see the value. You don't see value in what the president said on the floor of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce when he said, government is arranging the economy in such a way that you bring your money in, you can easily take it out whenever you want.
Yes.
Well, before you make such a statement, you have to get prepared. In other words, lay the groundwork in the country.
Okay.
First and foremost, address Nigerians on what is happening and why you want to seal it up. Why is it that people still mention Murtala Mohammed? Nearly 50 years now. When he came in, he had to do some certain things. He lasted for 6 months.
Yes.
But that proactive measure he took, like Tinubu coming in, first and foremost, all those people Buhari put there, many of them we imposed from up, are still there. What are they doing?
Let me ask you, Mr. Daniel, because we're running out of time. Political considerations in the appointments and in some of the moves, how quickly or slowly do you think political considerations influence governance and impact on the people?
Well, the current dispensation shows that political consideration influenced to a very large extent the appointments and engagement of persons in governance, including the security agencies. What we need to entrench is far-reaching policies, infrastructure, things that will take care of them. Look at America. Look at what is happening to a whole tough former president. We don't have that here. Here, information are guided. Look at the acting governor of CBN. Do you know the damage that negative development will do to the economy?
That's true.
You understand me? Sorry to just digress a little bit. The Nigerian custom is under the Ministry of Finance, but they generate from the Blue Sea. They are the port. The national natural gas is under the oil and gas, but they have a company, natural liquefied gas management of vessel limited, something like that, duplicating what NIMASA is doing. And it's under oil and gas.
Well,
Then, sorry, please, I'm very sorry. Then, the blue economy, if properly annexed, can generate twice what oil and gas is generating. It can. If the minister really want to work, I hope he's not coming there to gather money and go back and recontest.
okay. Well, Mr. Showomi, in all of this, and thankfully you are in this space, communication is the most important thing. No matter what you are doing, and there are a good number of people who continue to reference the Babangida government. He communicated, either by himself or by the eggheads he had around him. How? Because these are not very friendly policies. Let's start. I mean, even though they are helpful in the long run, but at this moment, from the pockets of people, they're not looking very, very. So, how do you propose that government should do this engagement of the people, federal, state, local, particularly the largest demographic, the young people?
Yeah, communication is very key because we need to give hope to the hopeless, to people who feel they can't see a way out of the problems we found ourselves in. Of course, there's a way out. UK used to face the same situation in the 80s. If you remember, towards the late 80s, when the Sheffield industries and steel mines, the coal mines all collapsed, Margaret Thatcher had to restructure the country along the line of what we're trying to do currently. Of course, it meant with a lot of resistance, but today Britain is better off for it. That is why we're trying to go there. Government needs to communicate precisely, and in very clear terms, what they are trying to do with the economy. We need to acknowledge the fact that people are going through a lot of pains, economic pains, difficulties, and then, empathize with them while at the same time giving them hope, letting them see the trajectory of events. For instance, you cannot solve the problem in the country without the state government. It's quite very important. Even though the federal government controls 52.68% of the resources, federal allocation, the state government gets 26%. But many people, look up to their state government, with a view to address some of the problems which we have in the country. One of the good things which government needs to communicate more effectively is what they are doing about the power sector. Because currently, without investing in that sector, we're not going to make any headway. But we don't have major investment going into that sector. That has not been communicated to Nigerians appropriately. We should be looking at producing 20,000 megawatts of electricity. But it's been drowned by the collapse of the national grid today or tomorrow or yesterday. That is what people are saying. So government has not been able, they need to do more, in terms of communicating to Nigerians so that and there must be clear timelines, to all policy initiatives so that people will be able to measure the impact of what government is doing in their lives.
We need to start winding down, but I just have to ask this question before I take your last words. Chief, he mentioned PMS and refining our own crude. And we were told when the Dangote opening was done, I think it was in June or May, that they would start production in July. That didn't happen. But last week, information came out again that they would start refining by October, that the fuel would go into the market in October, which is next week. October starts next week. How is this going to affect our lives and the price of fuel, do you think?
Well, it should affect our lives because, one, there will be no landing costs for the refined petroleum products. There will be no shipping costs. And if we are not exporting, there is no exporting cost.
Are you therefore saying that the price should come down a bit?
It should, but...
Mr. Daniel, what do you think?
Definitely.
It should come down.
It will come down.
Mr. Showme?
It will come down to some extent, but not drastically. It depends on the price of a barrel of crude oil.
At the time.
At the international market, at the time.
Because we're going to sell
down,
to them at that price, at that international market price.
If the barrel of crude oil, comes down to $18 today, the whole thing will crash immediately.
No, sorry, sir.
Yes.
I disagree with you. The landing cost.
In one sentence.
Okay, in one sentence.
Yes.
When you refine locally, like Chief said, you avoid a lot of overhead expenses.
Okay.
You don't need to search for forest.
Okay.
That is the most important one. You don't search for forest, and you are trading locally. You are using Naira.
Okay.
Yeah, but the thing is that they must privatize. If I'm running a refinery, I want to make profit. This old deceit it has been going on. Okay. I'm sorry to say this. Even the Dangote refinery, sorry to say, I've been hearing that it will come to pass. We were given the impression that it was 80% completed. We are in marine. We understand this thing. When they tell lies, I feel very angry when I see a lot of lies. You can't help it.
Your final word.
My final word is...
Yes, on the state of the nation.
Yes, we should improve on the security situation in the country, make fund available to medium and small scale, improve on the right, electricity, harness the talent we have. We've seen, I have a client I'm sponsoring, a fuelless generator is at 50%.
Okay.
Without fuel.
All right.
Mr. Shomwe.
Well, I think we need to bring down the cost of doing business in Nigeria, ensure that we are able to remove the landing cost, but at the bottom line at the end of the day is the price of a barrel of crude oil accounts for 80%. So we are expecting some reduction once the refineries are working, but it's not going to be drastic reduction the way it's being presented.
Okay. Chief.
First and foremost, stop destroying all these private refineries all over the Niger Delta. You are doing a lot of harm. All you have to do is streamline them, have standards, like you have standard organization. Then the young people who are there will start perfecting their system. Remember, Biafra did not import a liter of petrol.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was fuel in Biafra till the end of the war.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief Godi Uwazurike, legal practitioner. We also had another legal practitioner, Mr. Tony Dania, as well as social commentator, Oba. Thank you very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation, even though this was just a conversation opener when we talk about the state of the nation. We'll see you in just a moment.